Eh, sí. ¿Qué tal? Estábamos hablando con Azucena. ¿Qué tal Marina?
Sí, me parece bien. Ujú,
Mejor, ¿no?
sí. Ujú.
Porque dan la impresión de incluye. Sí,
Ok,
listo.
muy bien. La Marina de Waller Creek.
Ujú.
Excelente. Ok, ya vamos a
Gracias.
comenzar.
Excelente.
Gracias.
Look like nothing's gonna come my way. So I'm just gonna sit on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Ooh, I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. Look like nothing's gonna change. Everything still remains the same. I can't do what 10 people tell me to do, so I guess I'll remain the same. Just sitting here resting my bones, and this loneliness won't leave me alone. Listen, 2,000 miles I roam just to make this dock my home. Now I'm just gonna sit at the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Ooh, I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, then I'll watch them roll away again. Yeah, I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Ooh, I'm just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. I left my home in Georgia, headed for the Frisco Bay. 'Cause I've had nothing to live for, and look like nothing's gonna come my way. So I'm just gonna sit on the dock of, watching the tide roll away. Ooh, I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. Look like nothing's gonna change. Everything still remains the same. I can't do what 10 people tell me to do, so I guess I'll remain the same. Just sitting here resting my bones, and this loneliness won't leave me alone. Listen, 2,000 miles I roam just to make this dock my home. Now I'm just gonna sit at the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Ooh, I'm sitting on the dock of the bay.
Hello. Let's see. We have one panelist we are trying to promote. Here we go. I think we've got him now. And Ricardo, before we proceed, I just want to be sure that you can hear me and that we can hear you. If you're speaking, it looks like you're still on mute. Ricardo is key to our program this afternoon, so yes, and Regina, just to answer your question, panelists are people who are going to be presenting today. It's a Zoom term. We're not necessarily having a panel today, but one of our presenters from Parks and Rec we've been having a Zoom gremlin with his system. So yeah, let's go ahead and do Scott or Deanne, if you guys could have him call in, and we'll just have to make this work the old-fashioned way. We'll call in radio show. All right, well, let's get this show on the road while we get Ricardo to join us on the phone. So good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who aren't aware, Parks and Rec Department at Austin, at the City of Austin, is having an exciting day. So we had some last minute shuffling around who was going to be available today, and I'll let Scott or Ricardo share a little bit more about what's going on in the City of Austin that's exciting today a little later in the program. But thank you for joining us on the update on the Waller Creek Boathouse. So for anyone who is interested or knows someone who is interested in listening to this meeting in Spanish, I'd ask that you please feel free to click the interpretation at the bottom of the screen, the interpretation button. And once it looks like a little globe at the bottom of the screen. And once you click on that, you're going to click Spanish, and you'll be able to listen to this meeting at the same time in Spanish. So I will now take a brief moment to offer the same welcome and instructions in Spanish. Buenas tardes y gracias por estar con nosotros para la actualización de la Marina de Waller Creek. Si usted está participando en español, es posible que actualmente ya está escuchando la interpretación en vivo. Si no es así y desea escuchar a esta reunión en español, solo hay que buscar el botón Interpretación en la parte inferior de la pantalla. Oprime el botón y seleccione la opción de español. Más adelante en el programa tendremos la oportunidad de aportar comentarios en vivo. Si desea participar en español, los intérpretes estarán para apoyarle. Quedamos a la orden y con su permiso continuaremos con la reunión en inglés con interpretación al español. So thank you. Let's transition to our slideshow for today. So again, welcome. We want this to be an interactive discussion. So while we are presenting, let's please feel free to type your questions into the Q&A box on the Zoom webinar. And we will work to answer your questions live. And later in the program, we'll allow folks to raise their hands and open mic so that we can hear questions also in a live, more interactive format. Once you raise your hand, that will alert me to allow you to speak, and I can unmute you. And so with that, I guess I just got a note from that I did not introduce myself. My name is Jocelyn Vokes, and I work with the Austin Transit Partnership. I'm the Public Involvement Manager for the Blue Line and your MC for today. With that, I will turn things over to my colleagues at Austin Parks and Recreation Department. If we have Ricardo who's ready to go, or is that you, Scott?
Yeah, I'm afraid we don't have Ricardo on the phone. We were hoping to have that work. It's not working for us.
Wasn't meant to be. And then I do see a hand raised already. We're going to wait on calling on the folks who have their hands raised until the very end when we have a Q&A section. In the meantime, if you do have a question that you'd like answered, please feel free to type it in the Q&A section. All right. Pard, I'll let you take it away.
Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Grantham from PARD. I pass it off to Deanne.
Sure. And I'm Deanne Williams, the project manager for the Parks and Recreation Department.
And I think I'm going to just call Ricardo and see if we can get him on the line one more time.
To answer a question in the chat, Ricardo Solis is a division manager for the planning division in the Parks and Recreation Department.
Okay, go ahead, Ricardo.
Yes, so this is the Parks and Recreation Department.
Okay, I'm sorry, there's quite a bit of feedback. Okay.
And I think we're just going to have to wing it. You want to start us off?
Yes, ma'am. And basically, the last meeting that most folks attended was January 12th. Maybe not everyone was there, but quite a few of you were. In that meeting, we looked at plans for the blue line in relation to the existing boathouse. And really, we're looking at the blue line. The elephant in the room here is that blue line is supposed to come right through where the existing boathouse is today. And so really looking at what are the proposed alternatives? What are the possible alternatives for the boathouse in terms of relocation of the existing services in that facility? So really important questions from the community is, can the boathouse remain in its current location or close to it, somewhere that's very close by? And secondly, if the youth hostel site is the ultimate choice of an alternative, how does the project how does it move there? What does it look like? Many questions around that. Next slide, please. So I think another question that it was the first question here is, what would it look like if there were if the existing boathouse were moved to an adjacent site, and assuming that Project Connect line is coming right through there. So we're seeing lots of constraints, and just to talk about them and to analyze them. One is the parking situation, bike racks, dumpsters, and maintenance. Everyone knows about where the Waller Creek Tunnel, right adjacent. Also looking at the idea that the train line is going to have at least some degree of noise and externalities that are associated with that train line coming through. Then the environmental constraints are actually quite large. So we're looking at, and I should have said, I suppose, that there was a site that was looked at that was just directly to the west of the train line. So train lines coming through, obviously you can't just pick up the building, but a reconstruction of the building directly to the west. And in order to do that, there are some heritage trees that would need to be cut down. Cut and fill refers to the idea that you need to either dig into the ground or add a certain amount of dirt. And all of these things are reviewed by the City of Austin's Development Services Department. And really, if you look at this list of 4, impact on heritage trees, cutting down a couple, the cut and fill, digging into the slope, which it's on a pretty steep slope, and filling in would need some environmental variances, and also floodplain modification. It's not certain that these would be supportable by Development Services Department. In fact, it's pretty certain that those would be some challenges in getting that approved. So let's go to the next slide. So there's some pretty big transmission lines that are directly to the west. Initially, we're talking about maybe that those would need to be moved anyway for the blue line. Now it seems like it's looking like they wouldn't necessarily have to be moved, and they could stay. But certainly the hike and bike trails are going to have to be reconfigured quite a bit in this location. Access is another issue. And it's really, I mean, you can sort of picture the idea that this whole area is going to be somewhat of a bottleneck in the future. And then the last one I'd say is that there is going to be several years of construction. So it's even if that facility was to reopen there, it would be pretty challenging you wouldn't be able to have service or continuity in that location. So that's some analysis of the possibility. You know, those are just some factors in it. So let's go to the next slide. So it's everyone knows the site. Folks on the call that are main stakeholders in this. And I think that if you sort of can picture that this would be the location, you're really kind of standing, that the train is it's coming right into the hillside right from that location. So I think Jacqueline was going to talk about this slide.
Yeah, sure. So what we want to put in this slide is the fact that we have a proposed option of what's going to be happening at the bridge. So unfortunately, because of all of the physical constraints that we needed in order to put all of the supports and everything for the bridge, which on this image, you can see the blue light rail line is running along the bottom with all the supports needed to support that to go across the lake. We were not going to be able to build a boathouse into it. However, what we did respond to for the sake of just providing more transportation options across the lake was community feedback that, well, could you double track this and kind of put a bus access lane and pedestrian and across the top of of where the blue line is going to run. And so by providing bus access at the top, you can see that this is already going to be a very busy area. So for that reason, we're proposing that we continue with the plan to move the boathouse elsewhere. And Ricardo, I see you unmuted, but I'm not sure if you're able to join us yet. And I saw there was a question in the chat about what is Ricardo's role, and he is the division manager of park planning. So he will be very involved in this project as it moves forward. All right.
Thank you, Jocelyn. And also I should add that my role has been the single point of contact for Project Connect. So in some ways it's very involved in this, but with the movement of the boathouse to another location, I would be a lot less involved. And I would also ask Deanne, maybe we can tag team a little bit, because we have not been together. We can, share some expertise, but that Ricardo has been kind of the principal person involved in this. So essentially, we're looking at the existing youth hostel, and we've had a lot of stakeholder input on what this could look like, and I think that channeling what we've spoken about with Ricardo, just to emphasize that this process is at the very beginning, and there's not a lot of information to share about what the new site or how it could look, but we do want to share some thoughts and images, and just to kind of get the conversation started. There's going to be some next steps that are expressed at the end, And we fully expect that this be a very stakeholder involved process to get input. Next slide, please. So we're looking at some of the existing items here. Peninsula and a rowing dock and the youth hostel site, which some of you are very familiar with. I have been, I've never stayed at the youth hostel, but actually when my wife first moved to town, she stayed at the youth hostel for several weeks, and that's how she got started in Austin. So good connection, personal connection to the youth hostel. So this is existing. Let's move to the next slide. So, and again, this is all very conceptual, just some shapes on a map. Things can move and dimensions can change, but looking at a potential storage location, potential dock location, and a hike and bike trail. And you can see the parking in relation to that. So some things to consider about being able to do the current operations or doing the operations of the rowing center. Next slide, please. So again, okay, this is inspiration slides, things to think about, things to an idea book, if you will. And you know, you have an image here of a nice wide dock. And I have to confess to you all that I'm not a rower myself. I've been out on many canoes and boats, but not personally a rower. So next slide, please. Deanne, any thoughts that you'd want to share about what we're looking at?
Oh, goodness. I think what you stated about this is an idea book. These are images to show you possibilities. And we'll discuss next steps on how we make decisions going forward after this. Next slide.
Very well lit one there. And I don't know where these are taken, but Ricardo did put these together.
Scott, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, great.
Better late than never.
Sorry about this. Oh, I had to try with my phone, so I guess my phone is working better. So I apologize for this disruption. And so yes, Scott, these are just ideas. Going back to the previous image where it did show the go back two more perhaps one more. Yes, the blue area there is kind of what as an idea where the storage could be close to a platform or a dock. And so one of the ideas to place a storage like facility there would be to not cross the hike and bike.
Okay, you muted for a second, Ricardo. Can you come back?
The dock or platform, the better. So that's the idea. So looking at now, if we fast forward to those images that show. So that would be like a platform or a dock, a floating dock per se, and then and that's just an angle, another angle. So this, for instance, this could be the storage, a storage facility close by, and then I think I had another idea how that could look like as well. So if we could move on to the next slide. So these are ideas of how the actual hostel building could be remodeled and function. So perhaps the storage is separated from maybe you know, a clubhouse where you could have like an office, you could have concessions there, you could have a meeting space. So we could see that as a remodeled building to support the rowing activity and other things for the department per se. So that's just an idea how that could, we could open up the water side with windows or high ceilings or something like this. This may take where we may have to totally demolish the existing building in order to do something like this, or retrofit it. I mean, that's yet to be determined, but something like this. So some of the things that I just want to talk about that we're still exploring is if we were to move forward with a concept like this, we would need additional parking. We would have to take a look at that, where we could do that. And then also the multiple modes of transit opportunities that we have here. I mean, we have Pleasant Valley nearby, we have Lakeshore Boulevard, and what that offers as far as vehicular and bicycle connections. Of course, the rail line that would be along Riverside Drive. And so just to see what transit opportunities we have for this, we already started talking about talking to our to Watershed Protection Department to identify some environmental constraints that we would have to deal with this idea. And so we really want to pursue that conversation, and really trying to work with our partners to see the amount of funding that we could have to start a feasibility study and design to see, if this is the vision for this area, what can we actually do? What are the obstacles? What are the, what would we need variances for the different construction, and if, and how to move forward with those variances per se. So those are things that are on our to-do list, and we are doing them, starting to pursue those. But that's what we need to move. In order to move this forward, we need to concentrate on those items. Let's see, I believe.
Yeah, so here, right before we move on to our question and answer session, which we've had some questions in the Q&A box that are getting answered live, particularly by Peter Mullen himself is doing a lot of legwork on that. But what we want to do is work with Parks and Rec Department to have an update on how this is going, a public update as to how this is going in November or December of this year, sort of kind of starting to keep that up. I saw in the chat, and you guys, Scott and Ricardo and Deanne can fill me in. Somebody was asking if we would take rower input on the design of this. What would you say?
Oh, absolutely.
Gladly.
And gladly, yes. And these are, like I said, we're not married to any of these things. It's just the idea of, at least the idea of separating the uses, the storage, from how we could use the existing building. And, we have to capitalize on the plumbing and restrooms.
That's right.
that are existing with the hostel, and how we can make that better.
And I think that's one of the benefits. I mean, as someone here who works for Austin Transit Partnership, and I am a rower, and I plan to go back. I'm looking forward to going back in July, even though it'll be super hot to do so. But, we were on a planning call for this call, and Ricardo was like, "Hey, Jocelyn, you're a rower, aren't you? What's your feedback?" And I'm like, the community is going to have a lot more feedback than I could ever give you when we open this up to them. Just know, if you are watching this recorded as a recorded session, not all of the feedback is and not only are we going to include what's in here in this meeting, but also we invite you to provide your input via email at boathouse@austintexas.gov. And we will be providing updates on PARD's webpage. And then as part of the Austin Transit Partnership, I do want to be sure that you all are keeping up with developments along the Blue Line. So your closest stop to the boathouse at the hostel site is going to to be at Lakeshore. And so May 26th, you don't have to wait until all the way until November to have a public update, but May 26th, we will be having a South Shore working group, and every single one of you is invited to join, because we will be discussing what the stops in that area are going to look like, including the Lakeshore station. The idea is to have these designed by and for our community, so that we can best make a transit system that works for Austin. And you can always look at the projectconnect.com/get involved page if you want to find out any of the other meetings that are happening along the Blue Line. And so with that PSA aside, I think we're ready to open it up for some live Q&A to be answered by both Austin Transit Partnership and the Parks and Rec Department.
Jocelyn, one point on that website, the Boathouse at austintexas.gov, that will be active sometime this week. So if you do email that website and you get a bounce back or something, it should be up shortly. So just to,
it's hot off the press. I like that. Good deal. Okay. So let's see. We have some questions coming through in the Q&A, and we have our first one. Okay. So, or I guess I should say what I'm noticing are some constant themes. First of all, would anybody like to raise their hand? I do see 2 attendees with their hands raised. Okay, we are going to begin with Christina Charnitsky, who has her hand raised, and I will open up your mic. And if you unmute, we should be able to hear you. Christina? For whatever reason, it's still, oh, there you go. You're coming through. Christina?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I was just wondering, has anybody thought or given any thought to what we do with all of our equipment in the transition?
Does anybody on PARD want to take that?
Yes, Ricardo Solis here. I think our goal would, and if everything goes as we would like, it certainly would be great for us to have the hostel site done prior to demolishing the existing boathouse. So there's very little, if not at all, disruption in service. So that would be our goal. I'm not sure if that, how that plays out, but that is what we would like to see.
Yeah, I think that stage of planning is still a little bit down the road, but it's great to have this already as part of our record. Next, we have Mark Strama. I'll go ahead and let me see if it will.
Mark made a comment as well, so he might be addressing that or something else.
Okay, I don't. Oh wait, hang on.
I'm here now.
There we go. Hey, Mark.
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. First, let me say, I really appreciate that the city that PARD and Project Connect are making this outreach to the community early in the project so that there's time. It would be great if the new site is ready before the old site is deprecated. I'm not a rower myself. I'm the father of a rower, and have seen how life-changing this sport has been for her, and I think for a lot of the other kids too. The thought that I have, and I'd be surprised if it weren't on the minds of a lot of the parents, is that this is going to be probably 10 to 15 minutes further for our commutes. And I think, regrettably, and really in many cases, the reason to seek out this new location is to extend the opportunity that rowing presents to parts of the Austin community that don't have easy access to it today. But the legacy of this program and the nature of the sport of rowing is that the vast majority of the kids who participate in it today come from probably west of Mopac, I would guess. It will be great if the effect of this move is to make this sport more accessible to kids from a broader cross-section of Austin. But it's also, even though ARC is a nonprofit, it's also a pretty expensive sport for the parents. And so what I would love to put on y'all's radar now is that it would be great if the city could step up and help fund participation for kids who can't afford to participate. If I will tell you that I, and I think a lot of the kids in the group, would be active recruiters for populations that haven't traditionally participated in rowing. And I think it would be fantastic. I would be more than happy to drive the extra 15 minutes each way if the outcome was that rowing becomes a more accessible sport to the entire community. But if we can't make that happen, I'm afraid that ARC will really struggle to keep the critical mass that it's built. And if it can't keep a critical mass of competitive rowers, I could imagine it getting into a bit of a death spiral, because it'll start to lose coaches, and the coaches are what make the program so special to these parents. So I just want to put that idea on y'all's radar now. I know we're a long way from needing to do it, but I'd like to get the recruiting started sooner rather than later. One last thing, they already over the summer have a partnership with Boys and Girls Clubs, giving exposure to the sport to kids who might not otherwise get that exposure. But I haven't seen a lot of retention of those kids, and I assume it's because of cost. I think Kevin might have something to say on this. Thank you for letting me have the floor.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. We do have Kevin Reynes on the line who would like to respond. I think that as a community, we share your sentiment, Mark. Kevin, are you able to unmute?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes,
all right,
sir.
Great. Well, first of all, thanks to PARD and ATP for putting this meeting together. It's fantastic that, we had the significant meeting in January. Questions were asked, and I really appreciate the diligence of PARD and ATP to come back and answer those questions, and to, as mentioned earlier, open up this for broad-based community input as we move to a new home east of 35. And to that point, and Mark, thank you for your comments. And some of this is just to mention, ARC does not turn anyone away for a financial need. We have a very open scholarship policy. We have kids on scholarship. Anybody who wants to row, wants to be on the team, we as a nonprofit underwrite that programming for those kids that have a need. So finances are never a factor. There may be other factors that keep others off the water, as it were, which is one of the reasons why we work with Boys and Girls Club and the Easttown Lake Citizen Neighborhood Association and 40 other nonprofits, whether they're people with disabilities, the VA, adults with intellectual disabilities, and those are all 100% free. We underwrite all of it, and we want to get as many people on the water. And by the way, I'll add, whether that's a rowing shell, a paddle board, or a kayak, or our retro boat rentals that operates out of the Boathouse. So we're looking forward to the new location. I think there's been a very kind of enthusiastic response now that we have an answer, and also that ARC has embraced the answer. And again, my thanks to PARD and ATP. And now we move forward on building out that vision for the future. And I think it's a transformational opportunity for the city in activation and programming east of 35. And look forward to the financial flows working as they should to fund PARD to be able to do that.
Thanks, Kevin. So next we've got Nancy Lee, who's got her hand up. Nancy, let me make sure you're able to unmute.
My question would be, since ARC has been proven to be a very responsible and worthy agent to run the Waller Creek Boathouse, is it going to be guaranteed that we will continue to run the new boathouse when if it is put into the youth hostel area?
I can take that.
Sure.
Jocelyn. Nancy, obviously there's lots of questions to be answered. And really, we can't guarantee that. That is gonna have to take a process that will go to council for approval when that's appropriate time, at that appropriate time. So yes, we cannot guarantee anything at this point.
And what you mean by guarantee, so what I understand is that the request for proposals is up to the city of Austin, is that right? Because it is a public building, Ricardo?
That's correct. Jocelyn.
Okay, so if this were to go out for bid again at some point, and we don't have that date or any of that kind of information right now, but it would have to be a request for proposals from the city council, at which point anybody who is a bidder would be allowed to bid on the possibility of running it. So when we say it's not a guarantee, it's not because it's not because we as entities or as people who have experienced the services don't believe in ARC as a capable partner. It's just how we have to follow the public legal process of making sure that those services can be continued to be provided to the community.
One more other question. The last
sure.
time when the original boathouse was built, there was no input by any of the rowers. I heard it mentioned that there would be, but that would be very, very positive for the rowers to be able to contribute to how the new boathouse and the clubhouse would be constructed.
That's great. Yeah, we're really looking forward to co-creating this with our community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. We have Kevin Crothers on the line. And let me see if Kevin, you can unmute. Crothers, not Reynes. Are you able? I see your mic is unmuted. You're on the air. Kevin, are you there? Kevin Crothers. Another Zoom gremlin. Well, Kevin, we can try again in just a little bit. If not, I'm moving forward to John Derrick. John? Just asked you to unmute.
Yep, got it.
There we go.
You had covered my initial question or that I had. You answered another person that had covered it, but I just want to reinforce the idea of getting whatever this facility is going to be completed before the existing facility is torn down. The last time we went through this effort, there was a long period of boats being stored in an open field and considerable wear and tear. Those boats, even though they're designed to be in the water, are not designed to sit underneath the Texas sun for a year and a half or 2 years. So that's important to us, as is being appointed the stewards of the new facility. And I just one other comment, and I think we've covered this in your presentation. We're not wedded to the location of the physical youth hostel. That could potentially be demolished and something built in a slightly different position in that same footprint. In other words, that would be something I'd be interested to see. Maybe combine the new boathouse with the storage area and demolish the old youth hostel and turn that back into parkland. You know, but that's the kind of flexibility I would like to investigate in the design of the new facility.
Okay, great.
Thank you, John. And also I wanted to read out William McCrae's comment. As both a rower and a builder, I would suggest that it is a high probability that it will be the most economical choice to remove the old building. So kind of a related comment there.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott, for catching those. John, I'm going to try, was it, let's see. I'm sorry, not John. Kevin, I see you've unmuted again. Let's try it one more time. Kevin Crothers. Maybe put your question in the chat if you don't mind. We're still not hearing you. Let's see, let's go on to Samuel Chang. Samuel, let's see. You are live on the air.
Hi, thanks to PARD and related entities for taking our questions and giving this presentation. I'd like to know what the constraints are in terms of resources available for reconstruction of a boathouse on the youth hostel site. Like, is there a dollar amount that we have to stay within? I know there are probably environmental and engineering constraints too. I was looking at my question that I sent about 25 minutes ago about like whether the new boathouse could be a two-story building, or how many constraints have sort of set into stone what the new boathouse site is going to look like. Thanks.
Jocelyn, I can take that one.
Go for it.
So constraints, I don't think we know those as far as financial constraints just yet. And of course, there's always financial constraints no matter what you do. But yes, we certainly don't know. We'd like to get into a feasibility study and get funding for that, so we can see where those limits lie as far as is it our best bet to do a two-story building, scrap the building there, and then do the two-story building, or separate the two. We do have, like you said, environmental issues that we probably will have to go get variances, because the floodplain is, you know, a lot of the peninsula is in the floodplain, and so just knowing some of those things and what constraints we would need. If we are allowed to do a dock or a platform like that, that we show what are the pilings have to look like and that kind of thing. So yeah, so as far as constraints, I'm sure we will have dollar constraints, but not knowing whether we need, you know, 5 million or 6 million or 7 million to do what we would like to do there, is we're hoping that feasibility study can give us those answers, and then we can start looking for the funding and see where they can, you know, where the funding could come from.
And I will say the funding piece is what is complicated, and that's what we've listed as one of the things that we need to further study as far as Austin Transit partnership. What our interest is to get this project going sooner rather than later. And so we're really, I know Peter Mullen and our team, we're really committed to making this happen sooner for you. So we just have to explore internally as far as how we can make that process move along. But we hope at our later meeting this year to have a little bit more refinement as to how we're going to go forward. So thank you for your question, Samuel. And I will now open it up for Mimi. Mimi Woe, you are live on the air. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Just
make a good
okay.
Commercial. Yeah.
Thank you. I have 4 questions. Number 1, how much did it cost to build the current boathouse that was built 10, 12 years ago? Second question, how much will it cost to tear it down, the state-of-the-art boathouse? Third question, how much will it cost to build a new boathouse? And my fourth question, which is, I think maybe of ultimate importance, who will pay for all this? The city, City of Austin, us taxpayers? I mean, this is a huge deal to tear this down and then build something similar somewhere else. And so where will the money for this come from?
Do you want me to take that one, Jocelyn?
Sure, go for it, Peter.
Yeah.
Good to hear your voice.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Mimi. I think all good questions. Unfortunately, don't have the answers to those right now. You know, there will have to, you know, the anticipation is that you know, ATP will have to acquire the land required for the blue line in this location, which obviously includes the Boathouse building. There's a whole regulatory process that goes around the appraisal and the appraised value of that land. And then also how that funding can be used, in part because this is land that was originally funded with federal dollars. So there are some additional regulatory constraints on that. So I would say it's a little bit of a complicated mix. And so we don't have all the answers about how that money will flow and how much there will be, et cetera. So I think that's still, you know, needs to be figured out.
All right,
Thank you, Peter. And also, Elizabeth, I'm going to try to start plucking some of these out of the chat because they're great questions in the chat too.
Yeah,
but
go for it.
Elizabeth Gardner said, isn't the blue line essentially buying the boathouse? Would your financial limits not be the value of the current boathouse? So it's as Peter said, and it's just a very scripted type of process that is federally mandated, actually. And so I believe that some of those monies that are coming to PARD may be able to be used towards this. But one big caveat to that is that one of those requirements is that land was actually federally, it was acquired with federal land, the land that the existing boathouse sits on. So there is a requirement that money or that trade be for other land, there be a land replacement. So it's just one of the many complicated things about Project Connect. But just to suffice it to say that there may be some monies coming from Project Connect that could find their way into this. And I say that there may be, because that's one of the things that I'm working on is being able to have mitigation dollars coming out of Project Connect.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to tag on to that, you know, I think it's just important. ATP and the city, we're all partners in moving this forward, and certainly with PARD. So, you know, I think we collectively are going to just have to figure out how to work with the regulatory constraints that exist there to come to a solution. So, you know, I don't know what that solution will be, but you know, I think I would just say the city and ATP are working together to find it.
Thanks, guys. I'm going to call on Virginia Hoffman. Virginia, you should be able to unmute. There you are. Can we hear you?
Can you hear me?
There you are. Yes, loud and clear.
All right. First of all, I want to say thank you to everyone for the presentation and taking the time to hear us on this. I've been through this process several times now. And I'm also the historian for Austin Rowing Club, so I even know what predated me. First have a couple small comments. I do like the location, proposed possible location on what we call the basin down there. I think that would actually be a very wonderful step. I also appreciate that, you know, this would have to be re-architected, and I'm very concerned on that. And I know that's been brought up, but there's a difference between a boathouse and a community boathouse, which we learned on the last process. I'm a member of the outreach community in ARC and have been for, you know, 15, 20 years. And the uses of that building and that facility could have been so much better tweaked if we had input from ARC community itself. We are probably the only community-based rowing entity that has substantial outreach. So I think the complexities of what gets put there would be better served if we were able to have people from ARC inputting into the process. That's not to say anything bad about anyone else, but it's very vital and a very wonderful opportunity if we can do that. And if we have to do it some non-partisan way, we could talk about that. But, with the type of outreach we run and the uses of that building, it's not just a boathouse. I guess that was just a point I wanted to make. I had a concern. I saw something that said 7,000 square feet, where the current boathouse is 10,000. One of my questions is that set? And then another one of my questions was, is this foreseeing bringing the vendors, which we use to help generate, financial money to the city, are they also coming with us? Has that been looked at and factored into this? And I know I have more questions, but I'll stop there.
Thank you, Virginia, for all of your contributions to the rowing community and your role as historian and then just advocate overall. So yeah, as you can probably imagine, we are not at that point yet where we're discussing what vendors and everything else is going to be there. But I will say, time and time again, what we are very interested in is having all rowers, giving rowers and water, kayak users, just water sports enthusiasts a chance to help us design this. One of my complaints there is, parking. Yeah, that came up, but also what about the physical levels of where the shower heads are in the locker rooms? So there's a lot to be designed, a lot for us to give input on. So yeah, we look forward to co-designing this. Thank you for your comments. I'm going to do a quick time check. We've only got about 4 minutes left. Oh, Mimi, I'm sorry. Did you?
Oh, you're talking to me?
Sorry, I think your mic accidentally unmuted.
Well, actually, okay, good thing, because I didn't get any of my 4 questions answered. So when can y'all have that information for us and the taxpayers of Austin? The question about how much it costs to build the current boathouse, how much it'll cost to tear it down, how much it'll cost to build a new one, and who will pay for all of this?
Yeah, as we were discussing, so we don't have all of the financials figured out. We are trying to do that, in the background. As far as how much the current boathouse costs, that should be part of public information. Though I'm happy to help you navigate finding that information. Yeah, so we'll get back to you on more detail as we continue to touch base with the community. Let's see, and then I've got Jeremiah Bartlett. If you're ready, I can unmute you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Hi, I'm a new novice rower, and it's been a great experience so far. I just wanted to, suggest that it sounds like this is going to be a very big project that we could use a lot of input in, and the South Shore Working Group is obviously going to be a great spot to get majority community input. Is there a smaller working group just for this? And then I guess the second thing that I wanted to make a question about was the money that we're looking for to get, if there's a way for us to kind of start looking at that early and say, how do we get additional funding if we want to make the boathouse a little bit better or different, as some of the other attendees were saying. I think that'd be really great. So thanks.
Great, thank you for that. And Ricardo and Scott, I think you and I could probably, and Deanne also, we could all describe, or we could all get together after this. I really like Jeremiah's idea to have the smaller working group established, and would be happy to help with that.
Certainly. Yeah, sounds good.
And then we'll talk about, money that you brought up later. And so we've got Pamela Bell. Pamela, I believe, so we have a lot of questions in the Q&A. Some are being answered live, some in the chat. We are, just please know that we are recording this session and we have all of the chat and questions captured. If we don't get a chance to answer your question tonight, or sorry, I'm used to doing these today, we'll be sure to circle back with you with answers to sort of the general themes of questions, either before the next meeting or use it to inform how we design our next meeting. So with that, I'm going to take one last question from Pamela Bell. And Pamela, you should be able to unmute.
Okay, so my question is that it looks like y'all are moving forward on the youth hostel site no matter what. So could you explain why the developer for the American Statesman site can't include the boathouse on that land? They're supposed to provide parkland, and it seems it would be a very easy way to continue the boathouse's location.
I might jump in there. Thank you for that question, Pamela. Ricardo, I also might tap you to talk about the feasibility of the different sites that were looked at.
Sure.
One thing on the Statesman site is that there's going to be another bridge there, or it's not a tunnel, but it's a bridge, and that is leaving from approximately the area of TxDOT on the eastern end of the site. So if just one constraint, one of several, might be the location of yet another Project Connect major infrastructure right there. So Ricardo, would you have any other things to add about that, or the other sites that were looked at?
Pamela, I know that your question was more about the Statesman, more so than the others, and I don't know if you attended the last meeting in January where we went through 6 sites, but those sites were particularly focused on City of Austin parkland sites. So, and I don't know if your question will, is including other City of Austin parkland sites or not, but we did go over those 6 sites at the last meeting with the constraints and opportunities, and I'll be happy to share that with you if you want that presentation.
I attended that presentation and I didn't hear an answer about the in-depth possibility being studied.
I think Pamela, I think this is Peter again. I think one reason that that site was not included, number one, it's not parkland yet, right? So that's an issue. It will be, hopefully, maybe at some point if all that goes through. The other issue is that even if it is, there is a little bit of a constraint in that the trail, just in terms of the way that the configuration of the trail in that location, the trail is pretty much adjacent to the water. And so if the boathouse was located on the site, it would be upland of the trail. And I think that you would have, some pretty regular conflicts between access in and out of the boathouse, between the boathouse and the water and the trail itself. Whereas, the hostel site, there's more room to navigate those different operational needs and modes.
All right, thank you very much for everyone who's participated in this. Out of respect of everyone's time, thank you all again for joining us. You can please stay in touch with us, especially at the Boathouse email, boathouse at austintexas.gov, Ricardo?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, which will be up and live later this week. And we know we don't have a lot of questions answered, but as we are admitting that, and we are working with you, and our aim is to be completely transparent as we continue to move forward through this process with you and all other stakeholders at the lake. And so, as I mentioned, this meeting has been recorded. Feel free to send it along to anybody who might have missed this meeting. And we look forward to staying in touch with you. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.